we will get started. We want to thank you for joining us on this call today. We know that you're busy and we appreciate you taking the time to learn about your community's landscaping and lighting maintenance districts with us. The city has been working with CivicMic to help educate the community about their different landscape and lighting and maintenance districts. And our goal is to provide enough information so that you can make an informed decision about your local services. Tonight, we'll go over the maps of the districts. We will talk about district history, details on the funding. We will touch briefly on the survey that is out right now and talk about how you can get involved further in the future. We'll keep the meeting to about an hour to respect everybody's time. We have set aside time for questions. If you have any questions, we ask for the sake of time that you please write them down and ask those questions during the question and answer portion of the meeting. If we run out of time for any reason, we may ask you to email the questions so that we can answer them on civicmic.com/Fairfield. If you haven't been to our website, I highly recommend that you spend some time on there. There's a lot of important information, a lot of educational materials, and the updates about the district will go onto that website as well. In order to ensure everyone can hear the presentation, we will ask you to keep your microphones on mute. Our public engagement process aims to gather feedback from various demographics with diverse values, and we want to hear from all participants that may or may not have the same perspective you do. We will attempt to shield anyone from personal attacks. So while I don't think this will happen, if there is any foul language or anybody is making personal attacks or disrupting the meeting, we will move you to a private meeting room. And then depending on the severity of the issue, the moderator will let you stay there for a few minutes and then you can come back. But if the unacceptable behavior continues, then we'll have to remove you from the meeting. I don't think that's going to happen. I know we have a lot of familiar faces here, and I don't foreseeing that happening. It's just one of those pieces we have to say. So we are going to start this meeting by showing you the pictures of the boundaries of your districts. So right now we are looking at LLMD number 5, Smith Ranch, or as many of you know it as Rancho Solano. So Smith Ranch is the landscaping and lighting maintenance district that takes care of the Rancho Solano community. And so if you can see, these are the boundaries of the district, and all of these little lights are the lighting of your district, and these greens areas represent the trees, which make up a big portion of what the district takes care of. And if you can scroll down, this is LLMD number 5, and if you are part of Kolob, which is south of Waterman Boulevard, a little too zoomed in. There we go. This is LLMD 8. It's a much smaller district. Right now, what we're going to do is we are going to put a poll on the screen. If you can answer what LLMD you're in, just so we know who is in the room tonight and we can see what where people are coming from. So if you are outside of the district, you can put other. If you're in that Rancho Solano, Smith Ranch, or Colaba State, go ahead and select. We'll give people a couple minutes to fill it out. Ten more seconds. All right. Well, it seems like we have a good mix of participation today. So I appreciate you again coming out and talking to us. I am going to hand the speaking over to Chris, who is the Senior Management Analyst for the City of Fairfield. Chris Lewis, go ahead and let's begin.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. As Michelle said, my name is Chris Lewis. I'm with the Public Works Department, and I've been with the city since early 2020. So over the last couple of years, I spent a lot of time learning the history and the operations of the city's 16 landscaping and lighting maintenance districts. And I really think I came at a very pivotal time because we have an opportunity to make some, really big changes and some really big decisions that don't typically come around very often for these districts. So I look forward to it. Next slide, please. I'd like to start off by giving everyone just a brief definition of what a landscaping and lighting maintenance district, or we refer to them also as LLMDs. Like what are these? What are these districts? So basically they are funding mechanisms established by local governments in accordance with the 1972 Landscaping and Lighting Act. And they are established to provide an enhanced level of landscaping and lighting services to a defined geographic area. And the majority, if not all, of these services confer a special benefit to a specific community and are therefore funded by that specific community. There are some instances, however, where a portion of these services confer a general benefit to the public at large, in which case those services, that portion of services is funded by the city itself. So these districts are often formed at the request of a developer, either prior to or at the same time they're building a specific community. And they are requested to be able to provide property owners with those services that are above the standard level of service the city would normally provide in other public areas. So this higher level of service is something that's obviously very attractive to buyers, and kind of everybody wins because the developer gets to put that on the list of selling points and the homeowners get to enjoy very beautiful landscaping, the livability of an area increase, and so it really is a win-win situation. Some developers also choose to form an HOA. So in Rancho Solano, there's an HOA, and I'm not sure if that was formed at the time of the time that the residential area was built, but you can have an HOA in an area, you can have an LLMD in an area, and sometimes you can have both. And those two entities provide separate but very complementary services. And there's various reasons why they would choose one or the other or both, but in either case, the goal is always the same, and that is to provide property owners with services that are higher than the standard level the city would normally provide. So these districts are funded by the property owners, as I mentioned earlier. They are funded through assessments, which are calculated by registered engineers. And then those assessments are placed on the tax bill, and then they are collected by the county each year. However, I just wanted to point out this side note here is that they're not related to your property value or the 1% property tax the standard property tax you're subject to. Those property taxes go towards like general services that are, more of general benefit like fire and parks and library and things like that. So in your property tax bill, you'll see different line items, one of them being this LLMD. Next slide, please. I'll go ahead and move into a brief history of each district. As Michelle mentioned, the Smith Ranch and Rancho Solano, those are sort of interchangeable terms. The official name of LLMD number 5 is Smith Ranch. The land itself was referred to as Smith Ranch prior to any development or district being formed. The district was formed with the name Smith Ranch, and then the developer, probably for like marketability reasons or other reasons, changed the residential area to Rancho Solano, but the district continued on with that same name. So those two terms are interchangeable. This district was formed in 1987, and there again is the district boundaries. You can kind of see that there on to the east of, to the west of I-80 there. And in May of 1999, voters did approve a maximum assessment rate of $350 per parcel, plus an automatic CPI increase every fiscal year to help mitigate the effects of rising costs over time. Next, please. Next, we have Kolob Estates. This district was formed in 1989, and you can see from the map there, relatively, it's much smaller than Rancho Solano. The maximum rate for this district was established in 1994. However, there was no CPI authorized. So the district is currently capped at $400 per parcel. There was a ballot submitted to the voters in 2003 to increase that $400 rate, but the voters did not approve that in 2003. So the rates remained the same at $400 per parcel, but services were reduced around that time. If there are any property owners who are around in 2003, I believe this is when the property owners took back ownership of the landscape strips in front of your homes. The city no longer takes care of those landscape strips in the Kolob area. Next, please. So I've mentioned a couple times now that that voters passed the CPI, or that ballots were sent out to voters. And just to give you a little more context as to why these types of increases required voter approval, I wanted to give a quick description of Proposition 218 for those who may not be familiar with it. Proposition 218 was passed in November of 1996. So just a little less than 10 years after each of these districts were formed. And it's an amendment to the California Constitution, which restricts local governments from establishing new or increasing existing assessments and taxes and fees that were established prior to the passage of Prop 218 without getting property owner or ratepayer approval. So Prop 218 is really quite central to some of the funding challenges that we're facing now with many of our LLMDs. And that really brings us to the purpose of today's town hall, which is about a year and a half ago, we began a comprehensive review of all the LLMDs to determine the financial and operational viability of the districts. And Rancho Solano and Kolob are among the 9 that have been identified as requiring an increase in revenue in order to maintain the services that are currently being provided by the districts. Next, please. So I'll go over the each district's budget here separately. This chart that you're looking at shows the fiscal year. The next line down shows the beginning fund balance at the beginning of the fiscal year, or what funds were available as of July 1 of that year. You'll see the revenues and expenses during that year, and then the ending fund balance, or the funds that were available as of June 30th of that fiscal year. So with the current projections, Rancho Solano is projected to deplete its reserve fund by fiscal year 25-26, but really we start to see that decline in fiscal year 24-25. We've heard from property owners that the quality of services being provided by the current landscaper has some room for improvement. And this is sort of the same messages that we've been receiving from a couple other districts as well. So what we're doing is we're working on restructuring the way our landscape contracts are set up to hopefully attract more quality bids and landscapers. But of course, we understand that that type of shift will come at a cost, which is compounded by the fact that costs just generally increase over time, especially lately. So what you're seeing right here is sort of the baseline projection and really is the best case scenario. These projections do not include any capital replacements or major landscape renovations. We do have a little bit of room to address some minor, emergency repairs, but if we're talking about replacing some of the original landscaping or original irrigation lines that are out there, there's really just no room to both maintain regular, day-to-day monthly services and then also do those major renovations. Next, please. The Kolob district will actually start seeing a decline in services by fiscal year 23-24, so just by next fiscal year. Like the Rancho Solano district, these projections right here do not include any major renovations or capital asset replacements. And I say that, by fiscal year 23-24, if you see right here, the ending fund balance is negative $32,000. Well, since these districts were meant to be self-sufficient, we actually wouldn't be able to submit a budget like that. We'd have to be a net zero at the end of the fiscal year. So expenses would be, only $62,000, which is, way less than what we're currently spending now for this district. But the good news is for both of these districts that we are approaching this issue and these funding challenges really at the right time. That's why we've brought on CivicMic and NBS. So CivicMic, Michelle and Biana here are from CivicMic. They are our city consultants. Their parent company is NBS, who is going to be helping us with the engineering and financial analysis. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we've brought them on to really help us with this entire process. CivicMic is going to help us hear from the community. And MBS is going to help us address these budget shortfalls. And that way we don't have to do this Prop 218 vote and all of this analyses again for another couple decades, hopefully. Next, please. So in order to properly and comprehensively address this issue for both of these districts, the city must complete what we're referring to holistically as a Proposition 218 process. And we're going to do that over the course, over this next fiscal year. It's going to include 2 things, a community engagement piece and a Proposition 218 balloting and analysis piece. So the community engagement efforts really are so crucial because this is what sets the tone for what's going to be on the ballot. It's going to set the tone for, what we're going to see in this district over the next couple decades. So it's going to be a two-pronged community engagement approach. And the first prong will include an educational piece, which is to make sure that all the property owners are aware of the current district boundaries and services and the current situation, sort of like what we're doing right now, but it'll be an iterative process. But we want to make sure you guys really understand what's going on and the services you guys are paying for, and that way you can make an informed decision at the ballot box, whether or not you want to increase services, decrease services, or remain the same. The second prong to that community engagement piece will include some interactive tools and collaborative work groups. Michelle will talk about that in a little bit, but these will be available to all property owners. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity, we give an opportunity to everybody who wants to be involved, how they want to be involved. Some people just kind of want to check in every once in a while, and Michelle will talk to you a little bit more about that in just a bit. But the main purpose of this community engagement is to determine what the community wants. We want to hear from everybody. Do you want more? Do you want less? Are you happy with what you're paying? Would you like to decrease what you're paying? And so we're going to take the results from this community engagement piece and then use that information to form the engineering analysis and the financial analysis. So the second piece to this Proposition 218 process that we're talking about is the Prop 218 analysis. So Proposition 218, in addition to us, the state requiring cities to get property owners to approve these new and increased assessments, they actually also require that the city must prove and demonstrate the cost of each service and improvement that the district is providing, the quantified portion of special benefit that each parcel is within the district is receiving from those services and improvements, and the quantified portion of general benefit that those services and improvements provide to the general public at large, among several other things. The city proves and demonstrates all these facts in what is referred to as an engineer's report. So that's where MBS comes into play. We've hired this consultant who has extensive experience and a long history and a solid background in special financing districts. So NBS will be creating this engineering report for us, and that's what we'll be putting to the property owners and council for approval, and that will be the basis for this ballot that we're talking about that's going to be happening next year. So once those analyses are complete, then we will ballot the property owners based on the information we've received from the community engagement and what's in this engineering report. Next, please. So the timeline. This entire process takes a little less than a year to complete, with the bulk of the work happening between now and February of next year. We're going to be doing that public outreach. We're going to be gathering the data. The NBS is going to be engineering the special and general benefits. So really most of this work is going to be happening in the next few months. By April, we will be mailing out the ballots to all the property owners. And then in June, we will hold the public hearing at City Council, and we will tabulate the ballots at that meeting and hopefully have a resolution of formation for a new district. When I say new district, it's essentially just going to be a replacement district for what you guys already have. It's going to have maybe a new name, but it's not going to, it's going to be with the formed with the services and the assessment rates that is chosen by the community. Next, please. The goal, of course, of this Proposition 218 process, just to sort of sum it up, is to establish those new assessment rates and new scope of services beginning July 1. And I put a little asterisk there because I wanted to make sure that I made it very clear that we would establish these new assessment rates and new scope of work in essentially a new district if the community chose. The city has taken a very neutral stance. We're not advocating one way or the other, whether or not a new district should be formed or shouldn't be formed. We're not advocating one way or another what services should be provided by the district. NBS and CivicMic likewise are also taking a very neutral position. But essentially what we want to do is, as of July 1, we want to make sure that whatever's in place has been set essentially by the community. Next, please. So finally, I'll wrap up by letting you know that if the ballot fails, and it fails such a negative word, but what it means is that we're going to hear from the community. We're going to wrap up all that information into the engineer's report. We're going to use that engineer's report to create the ballot, and then we're going to send that ballot off to the property owners. Now, if that ballot comes back and it's rejected by the majority of property owners at the time we're opening in the ballots in June of 2023, that's what we're referring to as failed. Then it's not that you won't receive any services, we just won't form that new district we're talking about. What will happen is we'll continue with the same district, we'll continue with the same assessment rates, we'll continue with the same services that the revenue that we receive can reasonably allow. So I think for the Kolob district, for example, right now we're receiving about $50,000 or so in assessment revenue each year. We will continue to assess at the same $400 per parcel rate. We'll continue to provide services as much as we can with $50,000, but of course, over time, those services will start to diminish because, you know, in the year 2035, for example, $50,000 won't get you as much as it would today. And, you know, today, $50,000 doesn't get you as much as it did 20 years ago. So you'll just start to see those services decline. But I don't like to use the word fail only because if the ballots are not approved, what that means is the community has spoken. And that's really what we want. We want to hear from, you know, the property owners, the people who are paying these bills, what it is that you want. So if that does happen, not only will those services decrease, what we will try to do as a city is try to reach out to the community on an annual basis to say, hey, listen, here's a list of services that we may need to cut. Is there something you have a preference on? So as much as reasonably possible, we will try to reach out to the community to figure out what services you'd like to cut before we just go and start, you know, kind of hacking away at your services. So this was quite a bit of information, and I hope I didn't take up too much time, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to Michelle and answer questions at the end. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. I truly appreciate it. So now what we're going to go into is just next steps and how to get involved. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So the first thing is to, as I mentioned earlier, go to civicmic.com/Fairfield and look at the maps, click on your parcel, see what you're paying now, look at your district boundaries, and just familiarize yourself with the information that is on the website. There is a lot on there and a lot of articles that you can go through. It's kind of a choose your own adventure, right? If you want just the basics, you kind of can go in and look a little bit, but the more you delve in, the more you will know about your district. You'll understand the finances and the process. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The other thing we would, go ahead and go to the next slide too. Sorry, I forgot. There we go. Take the first survey. I know many of you may have already, but if you are on this call and you haven't and you were just waiting for some more information, now is the time. The survey will be open for the next 3 weeks. So be sure to go in there and make sure that your opinion is known. We will be basing a lot of the engineering reports based off of the information we find out in the survey. Also, our outreach is determined by what we see in the survey as well. We want to, like Chris said, we don't have a preference which way this goes. So what we want is to make sure that people are informed and are able to make those informed decisions. When you get that ballot in the mail, that you know what is going on and you know what a yes or a no casting of the ballot is for. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Yep. Take the survey. If you go to the website, it is on the first page, so it is really easy to find. Click there and take the survey. If you're from Kolob or if you are from Smith Ranch or Rancho Solano, just make sure that you select the area you are in so we know what district to put it towards. And then the other thing that you can do is if you would like to join the working group, which is a smaller committee of people who are really looking to inform your neighbors. If you have some resources, if you are the person who everybody goes to their house for Thanksgiving, we would love for you to participate in getting more people involved. The more people that know about the district, the more people that are informed, the more that we know we are reaching what the community consensus of what the community wants. So please, if you are interested in joining the working group, I know there are some people already on here that I've talked to a couple of times. I see their names. Please reach out to me via my email address, margrich, ARGERICH at civicmic.com. And go ahead and go to the next slide. And if you just want to chat, maybe you are not interested in joining the working group, but you have a lot of information about your district, about the needs of your neighborhood, please feel free to give us a call. You can give us a call at 1-800-676-7516 and ask for Michelle. You can reach me via email. And you can reach us via mail at 32605 Temecula Parkway, Suite 100, Temecula, California, 92592. There's a lot of different ways to get involved, and we really look forward to hearing from your community, hearing the needs and the desires of your community so that we can really push your neighborhood into something that you really, really love. All right. That being said, go ahead and you can close out, Viana. We are going to open it up for questions. Again, I'm going to ask for some hand raises. We want to make sure that we're being respectful, and we will go ahead and keep yourself muted until somebody calls you. You can either, yep, I see a few people just raising their hand like that, that works. Or if you want to do it via the Zoom panel, you can do that as well. Let's see. So we will start. I see Michael Fox, you have a question?
Well, I listened to your presentation and I thought this was to give you some feedback. I live in Colib Estates. I've been here for 6 years. I pay the $400 annually. And I think myself and many of the residents around me feel like we're not getting any services. So one of the issues would be, it would be nice to delineate exactly where the 78,000, which I think is what you would put out for the next fiscal year, is going. We don't have any services except for the strip on Oliver Street, which is the main strip. They prune the hedges, they do some mowing, but up here where the residences are, there is no tree trimming, there's no mowing, there's no planting, there's no pruning, there's no gardening whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the owners have to change the sprinkler system when it fails. Occasionally we'll call if a pipe bursts or something significant happens, but we go up to Rancho Solano every day because I'm a member of the gym there. The Dominguez trucks live there. They're doing constant work in Rancho Solano, and I understand they're paying $850,000 or so, and we're paying $52,000. But if you wanted some feedback, I could tell you that none of us are very happy with the services that we're getting for our meager $400. The other issue is that I've called up this number. As a matter of fact, I just got my tax bill today, and it indicates the $400 assessment. And I've called up the number on this tax form several times just to talk to someone. No one ever calls me back. So I don't know who's running the show for the $400 that we're paying per year. There's no communication that I could ascertain between the owners and this maintenance organization. So for me, at least, I know that you're just informing us as to the process, but it would be very important, I think, to know exactly where the money is being spent. what you anticipate you'll need for more expenditures, exactly what programs or improvements you suggest, how much money that's going to cost. I have no idea what you're suggesting the rates go up to from 400. Is it 500? Is it 600? Is it 800? Yeah. And I wasn't here when the neighborhood voted down the increase for improved services. So I think it'd be very important to at least be as specific as possible with what you've done with the 52,000 you get from us and what you propose will happen if we approve of this increase.
We have Duke's problem also.
Thank you. Yeah, those were a lot of good points and a lot of good questions. So the budget, if you'd like to look at line item by line item, that is available on the City of Fairfield website. But I also ask, I'll also coordinate with Michelle and Biana to get that posted on our CivicMic website so it's more easily accessible. But if you did want to take a look at it tonight, you can look at the City of Fairfield website, go to the City Council. It was approved at the City Council, and I believe it was the August 16th meeting. It was the August 16th meeting. So if you go to that August 16th meeting, you'll see the engineer's report that was submitted, which includes a complete line item budget in that engineer's report.
Is it specific for Collab though, or is it just for the city?
No, it's for Collab only. Collab. Yeah. Okay. Is it Collab? I've been saying Collab this whole time.
You say Collab.
I get a lot of people say a lot of different ways. But as far as those irrigation sprinkler heads, I'm glad you brought that up. That should be something, if you wouldn't mind giving our operations team a call about. The city.
They know me. I have a long record with the city.
Okay,
I call them constantly. I call them a light is out on the corner, and I call them when people break the chain link fence so they could get to the open space illegally. Yeah. I call them about the sprinklers. And then most of the time, if I could do it myself, I do it because the response isn't so good.
Yeah, and it's a little odd only because in this area, because of the budget cuts, the homeowners take care of the maintenance of the landscaping, but yet the city still has, because the irrigation is hooked up to one single valve, the city still has control. So it's a little odd in that area, but these are exactly the types of suggestions, that we would like to put forth in this community engagement process, because like you, there might be some people who are like, no, can we just give it all to the city? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense where we're kind of piecemealing this. And then the other question you had, or the other point you brought up was your tax bill, the phone number. I'm not sure which phone number you're referring to. I believe they were all switched to my direct line, which is, and we can post it here maybe in the chat box, Biana, if you don't mind, 707-428-7089. I apologize if I don't recall a voicemail, but I definitely will. I'm happy to talk to you whenever, just give me a call. I can go over these with you.
That was not the number I called.
Oh, okay.
Heretofore, the bills indicated an 800 number, and so I called the 800 number, never got an answer. It was a workable number. I could leave a message, but I never got an answer. One other point I'd like to make, it's very important for the neighborhood and for the owners to maintain the trees. The trees give the whole neighborhood its character, and we're losing trees. It takes, I know I had an issue with one of my trees. It took them over a year for the city to come out and take care of it. And as it turned out, they chopped down the wrong tree, the nicest tree on the block.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how that mistake was made. And instead, they planted a couple of new ones, but there's,
maybe
it's going to take a long time for them to grow to the tree that. So anyway, what's really important, I think, to most people is the maintenance of the trees to keep them healthy. It's not only supplying them with water, but it's trimming and it's keeping them healthy. And I think the attitude of the city has basically been, it's up to you, it's up to the owner. They're not responsive. So that's another issue I think that's really important for us.
Thank you so much, Michael. I truly appreciate it. Yeah, I will work with Chris on making sure that that information is posted to the CivicMic website, as well as the information on how to use the Fairfield app to make maintenance requests as well. It is a very effective app, and I know we've had people use it to great success. So we will post something about that too, so that you have that. I appreciate you speaking out, Michael. All right, I am going to go to Martin. I see your hands up. All right, we will go with Pam. I see your hand up.
Please jump off of mute. Hi. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this. Technology is fantastic these days. I've lived here, gosh, 26, 27 years in the same house. Okay, so we've been through the whole gamut. And the first time that they proposed the increase, no one knew what it was for, right? So I think that was the challenge. So at least we, I do appreciate you bringing folks together and trying to help bridge understanding and helping us to be able to have an avenue to seek to understand. So appreciate that. I would totally agree with Michael. I actually live across the street from Mike Fox and Carolyn, and lots of folks here on this Summit corner here. We haven't seen service at all in our area. I would say in the beginning, like the first 10 years we lived here, they'd come and spray for weeds. They put down bark, they maintained the bushes, everything was good. They proposed an increase, but it was substantial back in the days. It was a large increase, and we just didn't feel like that was, the whole neighborhood was like, hey, heck no, that's not going to work. So, but there was no middle ground, right? It was like that or nothing, right? So there was no kind of discussion back and forth, like what would be doable? How could we do other things? So so basically all of the city strips in our whole area went down. And unfortunately, like I live in a corner, so does Michael, so do folks on the end. So not only do I have to maintain the front of my house, which I have totally redone myself, but now the entire city strip or the city walk that our neighborhood knows, that goes all the way down, almost all the way down, that is really kind of no one's, but because it's on the side of my house, we take care of that too. It's 700 feet. Okay, it's huge. And I have gone through and like snipped agapanthus, planted them in the dirt, made bushes, like just the cheap way, but it looks pretty good, honestly, but we have to maintain it constantly. And it's a lot of work. And that is like everybody's, it's what did you call it? The general public's land, spot. So not even those areas that are, I get right in front of your strip is not done. Like we should maintain that. But there's these general thoroughfares. Mike Fox has one that goes all up against the city hill, and he and his wife Lily are taking care of another 700 feet that way. I mean, we have a good little corner here. We try to keep it up. But then to be like, hey, pay us more. It's like, okay, again, I agree with Mike. It's like, okay, tell me what we're already paying for, because right now I've planted thousands of dollars of succulents and I'm out there maintaining stuff. I have 3 sprinkler heads right now that I've called in 6 months ago. They're still broken out front. You know what I mean? So it's just really hard. I get it's lighting, I get it's water, but it blows my mind to think that we have another $78,000 of cost. And I know it goes fast, right? I do financial budgets, but it just seems like they're not doing anything within our neighborhoods at all. I mean, my husband sent pictures on the opposite side of our little circle of, they don't take care of that city strip. And you can't even pass between the bushes. They're so overgrown. Okay. So since we've left it up to the neighborhood to take care of the public space, it's not maintained at all on those public areas.
And that's, that is a good, you guys did bring up that the landscaping is not taken care of sort of on the residential streets. And that is correct. It's pretty much just the perimeter, a couple along Oliver Road and Waterman Boulevard. There's a little bit.
So it's the general public area that you were talking about.
Yeah,
it's
pretty
Waterman
much.
And Oliver. Yeah. So it's basically just city streets they're taking care of, and we're already paying for that.
Yeah.
But by the way, which hasn't been replanted, there's dead bushes that are just limbs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would second the notion on Mike's comment on the trees. We lost 3 trees due to storms and branches coming down. I went out and bought those little trees I planted were like $200 a piece. I bought 3 of them, personally planted them for our neighborhood. Okay. So we need to take care of the trees, but I can't, it can't be just when one falls down, we rip it out.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that has been just due to budget constraints. That has been the practice, which is if a tree dies, the city will just remove it rather than replace it. But these are all things that we can change with this new district. And then a couple things that were brought up by both Michael and Pam was kind of like, what are we paying for? Or what are we going to pay for? And it's going to go up from 400 to what? That's sort of like the $1 million question. Not $1 million. It's not going to be $1 million, but it's kind of like the $1 million question, right? And we won't know that until we hear from the community to figure out what is it you guys want. Because if you guys want, 100 trees planted and all of the landscape strips back in being taken care of by the district, well, that's going to change the cost quite a bit, as opposed to maybe we'll just plant 10 trees and don't worry, these homeowners will take care of it.
We've already planted our own strips anyway. Just
so
those public areas, like I don't want anybody touching those succulents now. It's like we've already done it.
Yeah.
But on the main areas that no one really owns, those public areas, I mean, mine's like it'd be great just to have it weeded. Nothing needs to be planted, but now just weed it.
And if you wouldn't mind, same thing, like we mentioned to Michael, if you wouldn't mind, please call our operations division. Please put in a ticket with the My Fairfield CA app. And I know that they'll post it on the CivicMic website, but definitely our operations team, Gary Sponsler, he's our landscape manager, and Richard Vasquez, he's our landscape supervisor. They're rock stars over there, and I know they get kind of bogged down. They kind of manage all of the landscape districts, but or you can message me and I'll send a message over to them. But either way, we'd like to get that taken care of for you.
Thank you, Pam. We're going to go with, we're going to do Martin and then Nick and then David. And then I see Smokey. All right. So, and then Carolyn. Okay. So that's the order we'll go in right now. So go ahead, Martin.
Very good. Thank you. Sorry I didn't connect with you a few minutes ago. I agree with the comments that we've been hearing from other folks down in the Kolob area. I'm in Rancho. I don't know if I see Dominguez up here quite as often as mentioned before, but maybe they do spend more time here. My question really is, we know that budgets are great tools to work through, but really the key is seeing how are the actuals performing to the budgets. And is there a way, if you go out to the website that you're showing us for the budget, can I see some previous financial statements that show what budget to actual is, to see how close we are and what the actual costs are that we're incurring, and dig deeper to see what the cause of those is? I think that would help me as the treasurer of the HOA here in Rancho to get a good feel of where the expenses are going, and to see if we get asked any questions, what kind of insight I could give to folks. Is that information out there on your website? Maybe I could poke around myself, but I thought it'd be easier to ask.
Yeah, the most recent engineer was published with the fiscal year 21-22 projected actuals, right? Because we came up with those numbers before the year actually even closed. What I can give you though is an updated number to what fiscal year 21-22 actually closed with. You might not find previous fiscal years, more specifically, probably like 2019 and before. You might not find that on the website. So if you want to just reach out to me, I can give you, I can work with our finance department to get a printout for you, and just email that over to you, so you can see what the actuals were. Definitely.
That would be great. I mean, trends really tell a lot, so you can see where things are headed. So absolutely. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. All right, Nick, go ahead.
First, again, thank you for this meeting, because it's crucial for hearing the voice of the community. First, I would like to say that I really appreciate the sentiments of our neighbors in Kolob neighborhood. And the question that I have is, because I'm in Rancho, is what is the logic behind talking to both communities at the same time? Because here's the issue. They are paying $50,000, and seems to me, by what they're expressing, they believe, at least their perception is, whether or not you can, talk to them about the facts be different, that they're not getting enough services for that. On the other hand, Rancho is a community that has a homeowners association. We are paying, there's no comparison between paying $50,000 versus $900,000. And I feel out of place here trying to, compare the two with each other. I can't even understand why you want to combine these two different communities together as your proposal. So that's one question that I have. Is there any communication between the city and the homeowners association? Because I'm here as a homeowner, and I know that this is preliminary and you want to see what people are hearing, but as a community that has a governing body, I wonder if there's any communication with them directly going on or not. So that's my second question. And lastly, what everybody's going to care about is the bottom line. What are we talking about here? Is there a projection on what increase are we talking about per parcel? And again, that should be different really when you're talking about two neighborhoods that are so distinct from each other. And, I'm going to stop right there and see if you guys have anything right now to respond to that.
Yes, Nick, thank you. So the purpose behind today's meeting was just to kind of give everybody an overview of what we're going to be doing over the next year. So you're absolutely right. The districts, it's kind of like apples to oranges, because the budgets are different, the needs are different, the assessments are different. So today's meeting is just the overview of the process, kind of give everybody a general idea of what the issues are, the funding issues. But after this, we will be splitting up. I mean, we might, I guess I should defer to CivicMic. With our other districts, for example, we started off as a community because everybody was sort of starting off on the same page. But once we start diving down into the layers, we're actually going to get into the details of each district. You're right, totally separate situations. So we're going to separate those two out. So likely after today, or maybe after one more meeting, we won't be meeting as a group this large again. And then your second question was communication with the HOA. Yes, I've been in communication with Pam and Victoria and Martin about several issues, and we've been in contact. I first met them, I guess I would say probably about 1.5 years ago when we went over the budget for last fiscal year, kind of an introductory meeting. And since then we've met several times, but they are definitely involved in this situation. And I understand they're going to be, and I believe they've already been working with Michelle in forming the working group. So there is communication with the HOA. And then to your point about everybody caring about the bottom line, 100%, I agree with that. Again, it depends on what the community says they want. Then we can start figuring out how much everything costs. Then we can start figuring out what everybody's assessment will be. So it all really starts with this data gathering in the first few phases. And then we can start putting everything together and putting out those budgets and proposed assessment rates to fit in. You guys can tell us whether or not that works for you. We can tweak it a little bit. But of course, the goal is to make sure that by April, what we're submitting in the ballot really reflects what we've been hearing from the community for these few months.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Nick. All right, and thank you, Chris, for answering that. Let's see, I think it was Carolyn. Oh, sorry, David, sorry. Oh, you're on mute, David.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, congratulations to Christiana and Michelle for your presentation. I've been there. I know how tough it is, and y'all did a good job. But I have several questions, and I can't get to all of them. But I'm gonna express this as a question. I don't want an answer now because I got a couple of other things to say. Why a new district in Smith Ranch? I don't understand that at all. One of the things I'm concerned about, and it's just totally coincidental, and somebody else mentioned it today, we got our property tax bill today, right? And there's a line in that property tax bill called Smith Ranch. But guess what? That line doesn't just include the LLMD that you all been talking about all night. It also includes the streets and sewers thing. But for folks who don't pay attention to this and don't know this and haven't been involved in meetings with you, Christiana, all they see is a bill that says Smith Ranch. And I don't think they would understand that what you're talking about with the LLMD is one piece of their thing about streets and sewers and all that kind of stuff, which has, as I understand it, a fund balance of like $9 million. You know, and it has a lot of work to be done out of that in future years. So trying to move forward with this as a campaign, and by the way, the premise of my comments is I'm totally supportive of whatever increase we have to make to the LLMD assessment to make our community better. And I suspect I would be in a minority in that attitude until we do a campaign. Just the confusion that comes up when folks look at their property tax bill and have no idea what the difference between an LLMD is and the Smith Ranch streets and sewers piece is going to be something that you got to address as you do your communication.
I appreciate that, David. David, you sound like that person that I was talking about at during my speech. That we would love for you to join the working group so we could chat more about this on ways we can make sure that your community is informed. Maybe it's a post with the breakdown on how to read the property taxes and what we're talking about. I definitely appreciate what you're saying about the community confusion, and would love to talk with you even in a one-on-one about how we can mitigate some of that. Chris, do you have something?
I would be happy to do that, but I'm going to refer you to an even more expert person who's on this call somehow. I don't see her there. Is my partner in life, who's also on the board of directors of the HOA Victoria.
Oh, okay. I'm okay. I'm glad. All right. Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations with Victoria. So I would like to address the question and actually clear it up because, one, why a new district? Let me just answer that quick question first. Why a new district? Simply because it's much easier to form a new district from scratch. I don't mean a new district as in we're going to do a bunch of, it's not going to provide much different services than what the district is currently providing, other than whatever the community is suggesting. But when we form a new district, it's actually much cleaner, and as far as the formation documents, as far as how the district runs going forward. So it's really just an overlay. It's an overlay on what you guys already have. The old district and the history and some of the confusion with the old districts, because some of the stuff is from the 80s and there weren't the same requirements as there are now. So it eliminates all of that confusion and really just, starts everybody on scratch.
Christiana,
yes.
With respect, and I mean that sincerely with respect, that's inside baseball talk, right? In terms of, there's 3,000 folks who live in Rancho in 1,200 homes. Mm-hmm. And that kind of talk is totally accurate. I buy that and respect that, but it's meaningless to most folks. So we got
and maybe what Michelle is saying, with us being able to clear it up during these working groups and subsequent meetings, maybe that, or maybe even a post that probably would maybe we can give some visuals or something else to help people understand. So, maybe you're right, it's not appropriate for this, I'm not able to explain it entirely in this meeting. So I'll just move on to your second question or your second point, because I think that's very important. The Smith Ranch line item does not include that other district for the sewers and streets. They are two separate line items. And two separate districts that provide two separate services. They exist independent of one another, have nothing to do with one another. They serve the same area, but they're not the same district.
Excuse, can I'm sorry to interrupt you. And normally in a meeting like this, I would have said, yeah, okay, until I got my tax bill today, just today. And guess what? They ain't two line items here. There's one line item here on my tax bill. It says Smith Ranch, right?
Yes.
So, because working with Victoria and you working with Victoria, I've become educated over the last several months that there is a distinction. But I look at my tax bill, there is no distinction, Christiana.
There is no assessment right now for the other sewer district you're talking about. Those haven't been submitted for approval to council yet. You guys, all the property owners will be getting some information in the mail very shortly about the tax for that district this year. So yeah, it's not combined. They're accounted for separately, both in the city and the county. I'd be happy to go over your tax bill with you if you'd like, but the assessment,
that's not necessary.
Okay,
thank you.
You're welcome.
David, I appreciate it. I'm sure that we can talk more offline, and we'll talk to Victoria. And I hear what you're saying is that even though you may understand, you want to make sure that the rest of the community is is understanding as well. And so that is something that, as a working group, as a city, we're very early in this process, and we
are completely supportive of the idea of whatever increase in the assessment that has to be made vis-a-vis the 218 process. We're not arguing against it. There's details we're concerned about, of course, but we want to move forward with that.
Wonderful.
But I am pointing out to you that I bet you most, i.e. 80% of homeowners in Rancho Solano don't understand the distinction.
Yes, and thank you, David, for that. And we will work through that as a working group, and we will have, I'm sure, many more discussions. I know we only have 2 minutes left, and I know we have 2 more questions that I definitely want to get to. And so I am going to go to Carolyn and then Smokey, and we will finish it out from there, but I definitely want to get to your question. So go ahead, Carolyn. I'm sorry, I don't remember who I said first. So Carolyn, go ahead and ask your question, and then we will go to Smokey.
Hi. So I live in Columba Estates. I'm a neighbor of Michael and Pam's. And I just wanted to make 2 quick points, well, maybe 3. I'm original owner of the home, so was here, first owner here since the first assessment. When the second assessment or the raise came around, people didn't vote for it, didn't get it. And so what's happened is that they're not aware. There are a lot of homeowners not aware that they need to keep their landscape strip up. And because of that, the area has suffered. And I think that one consideration is that there are renters in the area, and those renters are probably not going to upkeep that, especially if the homeowner hasn't said it to them. So I'd like some accountability for that, especially for the homes where we know there's renters and there's not accountability for keeping up the strips, because the homeowners aren't there, so they're not really concerned about it. And my other point is that with the trees in the area that are suffering, I don't believe that they're getting enough water. they're also not being trimmed, which leads to the liability for the city. We have a lot of flowering pear trees that grow very rapidly outward, and the limbs can get weak and very heavy, and they're going to break off and hurt somebody or somebody's car. So those are my main concerns. I don't want to take up too much time. I just want to make sure that those things are at least on people's minds about what's occurring.
Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate that. I will write that down, and I know that me and you should have a conversation soon, one-on-one.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Smokey. Oh, you're on mute.
You got me now?
Yep, there you are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Actually, I'm an original homeowner here on Russell Court. I bought the house brand new. So I was here at the very beginning when the hill was open, and when the city of Fairfield workers took care of all of our landscaping. I was also working with the city of Fairfield as an employee during that time when the maintenance districts were formed. So I actually do know a lot of history of the maintenance district, and it has always been kind of a forgotten area up here. I know that we were very few of us that paid a lot of money because this area was kind of an afterthought. So anyhow, I was actually on that committee of the 2003, where we met with the city. Unfortunately, there were only 2 homeowners that showed up for the meeting, but the city wanted to raise it up $50 a year. We bargained for, or the city recommended at that time, like was said before, those little strips out there that the city would no longer maintain them, but actually they weren't being maintained anyway. There wasn't anything being done with them, but nothing was ever told anybody is that. So what little scrubby things that are out there, some of us have nice things out there. Some have what was left over before just dying out there. So those strips really make our neighborhood look bad. But one of the earlier individuals talked about knowing where all this different money goes, is that I would also like to see that, is that, I guess I'm not really sure how much money is being spent, like in Russell Court, Gillespie Court, for actually the homeowners area. I know there's a lot of money that's spent out on Oliver, the lawn area out there and the landscaping, but there's not a lot here. I know that we had, like a lot of people don't understand, is there's a maintenance strip that runs behind the houses on Gillespie. And then there was a maintenance strip that ran down Russell, because the homeowners there were told that there'd never be anything built on this property. And then the city allowed this complex to be built in here. I lost half of my backyard when I moved in because that maintenance district was moved out. Long story, but I mean, there's a lot of things. I wouldn't mind being on a working committee for this. I do have knowledge of the beginning of this district, some of the woes that we went through. I do believe there are things that we can do, which I believe that those strips should be given back to the homeowners to do whatever they want with. At least I think we'd have some of them would have something out there. I think everybody right now believes that it belongs to the city, and they can't put plants or pull plants out, those type of things. I do have a question, is that if we were right now in our old district, I guess this would be for Christiana, if we did away with I know in our old district right now, we can't raise the rates on this area anymore, but if we form a new district, wouldn't that mean that there'd be a new rate set on it, and that new district could have tax increases later?
Yes, we would definitely advocate, or we would strongly suggest that let the homeowners know the benefits of having an annual automatic CPI increase baked into the assessment rate. So maybe we'd start off with, I don't know, $400 or $450, but then we'd add that CPI without having to go back to the homeowners for another vote. We would just, set it to where there'd be an automatic CPI increase each year.
But see, Christina, that's kind of my fear, is that, like I said, I've lived here for 30 years, mm-hmm. and I watched where nobody ever came out here. It was taken care of by city workers. I think the city actually was sued, and then they brought in companies to do the work. They didn't do anything. So we've sat here. I'm part of the people that turn the sprinklers on and turn off the sprinklers because no one else does.
Okay.
So
Us too.
I'm just curious is that I'd be very hesitant to just open it up to where I would be in a district where there would be automatic increases because quite frankly, I don't see that I'm getting anything for what I'm paying now.
I see. Okay, and we would definitely take that into consideration during the, I mean, you know, all of this will be set by the community. So if that's something you guys aren't comfortable with, I mean, that.
Well, it's also, we also have to understand that this district, we maintain that hill out there. That's a lot of money that goes out there on that open space.
Actually, from what I understand, the open space, while it's within the boundaries, the district is not actually paying to maintain it. Like district funds are not going towards the maintenance of that. But let me confirm that.
Okay, because that's not my understanding. We used to pay for the fire breaks and the cutting of the grass. That was part of the maintenance district. Just curious.
Okay. So the fire, you know, let me connect with you later on that. I want to confirm because I think the fire department might be billing us for that work. That could be. I think that's what
I do want to thank you for this because I did want to bring up that 2003 meeting, how that there were only 2 of us that showed up at that meeting. And this is great because there's a whole lot more than 2.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yep, we appreciate it. And we are at the very beginning of it, and we want to make sure that we keep up this momentum. I would love to chat with you. I would love for you all to join the working group and keep up this momentum and get more of your neighbors involved because that is really we really want to go based off of community guidance during this. Brian K., I see that you have your hand up. We are at time, but go ahead and really quick, if you have a quick question, go ahead and maybe we can end this by 7:10.
I will try to keep it very brief. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So respectfully, I think you need to work a little bit on the reason why you want to combine the districts. It sounds like there's 2 districts, one which has a level of service which is very different than the other. And when you say, I want to combine the districts to make the paperwork cleaner, I think, does that mean that everybody in the new combined district votes on every increase? And how do you combine the money between the 2 districts as it stands now?
No,
I'm just not clear on that.
Yeah, apologize for the confusion, but we're not combining the district. It was just this meeting that we had the 2 districts attend so we can give like an overview of the process.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
But we're not, operationally and funding wise and all of that, we're not combining anything.
All future meetings from here, all working group meetings will be, there will be a COLAB and a Rancho Solano working group. It'll all be separate. This was really just to get these areas as they are in the exact same spot at the moment in the process, to just explain where we are in the process, to get people to know about the working group, know about the Prop 218 process, start talking to their neighbors, and we will keep going from here, separating these districts out.
Got it. Thank you for the extra explanation, because I had to pop in and out in the beginning. I was having technical difficulties, so thank you. That answered my question perfectly, and I show 7:09.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We know that we truly appreciate you coming out. We know that it is your evenings, and we appreciate your care for your community.
Thanks for having the meeting.